All right, hello everyone, but I think someone else needs to. Sonia, okay, it's up to you.
So you, I think, need to, do I just speak from here? Something's...
You can unmute yourself and speak if you want.
But it's all echoing.
Echoing.
Echoing in my computer.
Oh, let me have a look at your computer. Just say something.
Blah, blah, blah.
I can hear you on Zoom.
Is this all right for participants, for Jason, Kylie?
Yes, thanks, Sonia. Yeah. Although I think you're on mute now, Sonia. I don't know if you...
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's good that we're...
Oh, no, it's still got echo there too. Sorry.
That's what I was worried about.
So I suspect that one person. Yeah. What if Eugenia goes on mute? Yeah. Yeah, that works.
It's good that we can cut
Be
this
flexible.
this video when we need to afterwards before we upload it. So it still is my greatest pleasure to introduce this afternoon Eugenia, who's come to us from the University of Patras to speak to us. Eugenia is going to talk about refugee experiences in Greece and share with us some of her research, but I do want to read out her bio because it's very impressive and it's too long for me to memorize. So Eugenia Arvanitis, and I hope that I've pronounced that all right, is an associate professor of interculturality and diversity in education at the University of Patras in Greece. She's the students practicum coordinator at the postgraduate program Intercultural Education and Mediation at the University of Patras and the University of Nicosia. Nicosia, thank you. Oh, I've always pronounced that wrong in my head. Dr. Arvanitis has coordinated the RMIT Greek Centre from 2001 to 2004 and worked for a number of divisions in the Greek Ministry of Education and Religious Affairs from 2006 to 2012. Finally, she's been involved in policy development for intercultural adult and immigrant refugee education. For example, drafting working papers and expressions of interest for major national programs funded by the European Commission through the National Strategic Framework of Reference and attending the Council of Europe, UNESCO and Salzburg Global Seminar expert groups on diversity and inclusion. And I have to say, we've only just met, but I have so much to ask you and to talk to you about in the next couple of days. So I'm really, really looking forward to this seminar and welcome you to Melbourne. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia, and thanks to everyone for being here. And I think we need to the volume needs to cancel the volume, switch off the volume. All right, thank you everyone, Sonia and everyone, and of course, while in Australia, I'm always a learner. I used to be a learner 20 years ago, when I was doing my PhD here at RMIT, when I met Nicola Yelland. But I'm more than happy to continue this liaison with Australia and Melbourne. And of course, here at the University of Melbourne, I'm very happy to meet all these colleagues, new colleagues and new possibilities. And of course, I need to extend my sincere thanks to Kylie Smith, my colleague who remained in Greece because she loved the weather and and the hospitality. Yeah. Thank you, Kylie, and I think we need to swap roles here, so don't worry. I keep the post here at the university. Now I need to just turn my presentation on. Yep. Today I would like to talk to you, as I said, while in Melbourne, I'm always a learner, but today I would like to share with you some of the experiences, the learning and research experiences we encountered in Greece. So what I'm going to talk about the refugee experience through some numbers, narratives, and the kind of social learning that we obtaining from dealing with this special group. When I first went to the university, I thought that intercultural education needs to go mainstream to have this kind of orientation and to avoid focusing on special groups such as Roma or migrants or wherever. And we worked extensively on the differentiated curriculum practice and design through the work of Mary Kalantzis and Bill Cobb, the Learning by Design. So we try to establish a very concrete work on initial teachers training and professional development of teachers. So the focus was on that sort of direction. But after 2015, when we had this massive influx of refugees in Greece, and we're talking over 1 million people going through the national borders, we had to revisit our research scopes and try to be more specific and more helpful with respect to these newly arrived people. So immediately we turned into the research of who they are, what are the stories, and we try to give them a bit of a voice. That was very important for us because we had these interdisciplinary connections with the social anthropology colleagues in Greece. So it became very important to us to describe these people, to get to know who they are, as I said, and try to become more useful in terms of the public rhetoric at that point. The public rhetoric was all about humanitarian assistance, and that these people were victims and people in need. They were, but they were something more as well. So we came across to these sort of refugees and to this special group of people, as I said. So refugees become the people who have crossed international borders and were people in need, and they were seeking refuge. That was of paramount importance for us to understand. And of course, under the mandate of the UN mandate, these people had to be treated equally as we could do to nationals Greeks, for example. That was always a challenge because national borders protect national identity, and people are very specific with safeguarding their own psyche, the social psyche, and their national identity. So we had a number of issues, but just to give you an idea of the kind of influx that we were facing out was that in 2000, let's say 15, you can see that we had over 1 million people crossing the Greek shore, the Greek borders from Turkey and from the Mediterranean. Oh my God, that was. You see, and in 2014, again, we had over 200,000 people coming. And by 2019 or 2020, we had only 23,000, roughly 23,000 refugees crossing the Aegean. And the demographics, of course, you can see that the demographics is all about, let's say 20% of the refugees are kids, like another sort of 20% women, and the vast majority are males seeking for refuge or seeking to more optimal sort of conditions in order to bring them families to Europe. And of course, current numbers in Greece, in particular Greece, we have only up to 9,000 to 10,000 people right now. The previous numbers were for the Mediterranean region as a whole. Overall, the displaced people or the refugees, it's a global issue, and will be more detrimental in terms of numbers in the years to come. So refugees are here to stay, and that's important realization for nations and local rhetorics and policies in order to become more suitable. So almost 90 million people are displaced at this moment. If you were looking the numbers 3 years ago or 4 years ago, it could be 65 million. So each year we have more and more people becoming displaced or refugees or people that are internally displaced within their own countries. Asylum seekers, 5 million, almost 4.5 million people at this point. So the numbers are vocal and they're high, and we need to pay attention on these kind of statistics. And of course, because a lot of discussion is happening about the countries who are the receiving countries of this kind of displacement, it's important to say that 80% of the hosting countries belongs to a low or middle income countries. So the Western countries and the high income countries receive only a small percentage of refugees, and they create the biggest fuss about it. So instead of having the low income countries complaining about it, we get all these sort of assistance or all these tendency to help their refugees when they arrive on their shores. And at the same time, the Western countries like Canada, United States, UK, Australia, yes, UK, you should become more vocal about it, because Australia, how many thousand refugees sort of accommodate each year? Like 10,000? Maximum, not even, like 5,000 something. So it's very important to understand, realize the statistics, because they talk the truth. And the truth is that low-income countries have a huge burden.
And is Greece classed as low middle income?
Of course,
yeah.
It's not a like a country that has a lot of financial issues. Of course, belongs to the Western sort of region, but.
And Italy would be the same.
Italy is a high income country. Yeah. Well, it's a bigger economy. It's within the G7. Don't forget. Yeah, of course. One of the biggest economies in the world. So 72%, 3/4 of refugees go straight away to the neighboring countries. Like if you're a Syrian, you're gonna go straight to Jordan, for example, which is a very low income country, or go to Turkey. So it's very hard for you to come to Australia. You need the means, you need the networks, resources. It's very hard. Or go to America, or go to Germany. Only people that have the means and the resources go to the high income countries, or using the relocation sort of schemas or programs. Otherwise, it's very hard. And of course, 69 of the refugee people go to certain 5 countries. These coming from these 5 countries: the Syria, Venezuela, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Myanmar, and other sort of countries.
I didn't know about Venezuela.
Of course, because of the Maduro regime. So a lot of people had a huge percent of Venezuelans had to flee the countries. It is important to understand that refugees is being generated through war, of course, conditions, but through other reasons, such as the climate change or other reasons, or a famine, or you name it. So this is another realization together with statistics that we need to take into account, because that highlights the issue, highlights the real dimensions of refugees in real world. So it is important again to realize. I mean, I didn't realize all these things that I'm talking to you right now, since I had no connection or no experience in refugee issues. But after 2015, we become more attached to this issue and more sensitive with respect to the various aspects of refugees. So I was really surprised to know that people live in exile over 25 years. So they could spend their whole lives by being refugees. And that was a huge realization that came into my mind. So I've talked in all these statistics. So 1% of the refugee people go to very distant sort of countries like United States and Canada. Okay, and the other one, as we said before, as we've seen before, a huge percentage go to low-income countries or neighboring countries. It's much more easier for them. Now, with respect to Greece, in 22, we only have 6,000 arrivals so far, in contrasting with the million sort of people that we have in 2015, or the 10,000 people that we had a year ago. So numbers are very low now, not very low, but considerably low, because of the agreements that the European Union did with Turkey. So Turkey controls, in Turkey we have like 3 to 4 million refugees from Syria, for example, and Turkey uses that to control the relationship between Turkey and the European Union. So they ask for money, and the treatment that they did in 2016 gives them like 3 billion euros to maintain all refugees in their within the borders. But each time that we have any political unrest and Turkey wants to manipulate sort of the European Union, open up the borders, and the smugglers bring all these people to the Greek shores in order to follow up the channels or the routes, the migratory routes to the Central Europe. So as you see here, this is Greece, and you can see that from Evros on the top down, on the top of the screen, we have sort of the entries from the mainland Greece. This is Evros, the borders with this is Turkey and Greece, and of course we have all this impact from the Asia Minor towards the Greek islands, the Chios, Lesbos, Chios, Samos, all these islands, roads, accept vast numbers or large numbers of refugees all the time. This is again statistics. I will not stay on these. And of course, we had one of people that were very attached to the refugee issue was a photographer, Yannis Bechrakis, the Reuters photographer, who captured all these efforts, the tireless effort from people to, reach the Greek shores. So we had all these tragedies written in the Aegean Sea, a lot of deaths, drownings from people, and a human sort of effort and struggle to acquire, to reach into a new destination and have future and secure some kind of future for the children and the families. But as you know, the refugee issue is always on the agenda because it's a multi-million sort of multi-billion industry for some people. So we have all these smuggling networks that stream people from one point to the next. Now, I will not give any other, I can give all these numbers to you just to have them, but just to say a figure, in 2017, we have 41% of the refugees coming to Greece were from Syria and 20 from Iraq, Afghanistan, and other countries. And now slowly, we have other people coming, like Palestinians, for example, or Somalians, or from Afghanistan. So because we have issues, geopolitical issues in these regions, so people all the time try to make their way to Europe. And this map pinpoints the actual refugee camps that we have, on the Greek islands, as we see here, the red, and these reception sort of centers, they are the first contact for refugees in order to have the identification processes done, and then to ascribe the asylum status to people, and to leave them to go inside Greece into the mainland Greece, or to be deported. I mean, all these. No,
Like we do here.
no. But these detention centers, we have detention centers. I mean, these red spots.
Yeah.
If your status cannot be identified, you're gonna stay there and then be deported. Okay.
How long does that process
Oh, it
take
could
on
be-
average?
Average could be a year, could be 1.5 years. It depends. But there is an attempt now to streamline people and to give them some kind of temporary status
In
and
Australia, that process sometimes takes 9, 10, 11
yeah. No, we're saying
Mhm.
different. It's all about trying to develop this rhetoric of protecting the borders and the security issues and so forth. In Europe, we have a lot of these heated discussions as well. And mind you, that Brexit was based on the influx of refugees taking over Great Britain. So that was a huge sort of fallacy that got paid by the British people, and they will pay for it.
Yeah.
And Europe will pay for this sort of rhetoric. But radicalization is one of the issues that we face in Europe, and it poses a great danger to democracies, Western liberal democracies. So we need to discuss. For that reason, I mean, these sort of contact and this research with respect to refugee issues, it was interesting for me as a researcher, because in order for me to design some curriculum suitable for students, I had to understand the kind of issue that we had to face as a society, as a community. So I think it's important to become more knowledgeable of the people and of the issues that we're dealing with. Now, refugees, most of the refugees live, I mean, some refugees live in camps in the islands or in the mainland. Some other people live in apartments like 22,000 people. And these apartments have been rented by NGOs and the UN, the High Commission for Refugees, and UNICEF and other sort of organizations. And we try, by that sort of mode, we try to accommodate people. But in the meantime, we lose all the time. We lose figures, we lose numbers. And I don't know if you remember, but during 2016 or so, there were reports that we're missing like 10,000 kids, refugee kids. No one knew where they were, because somewhere along the way, they've been, smuggled or disappeared or wherever. So official figures are always, a question if they are correct. And of course, during 2015 and onwards, in the years that went by, we had all these media attention about refugee issue, and the media used inflammatory language, use a language of, like refugees could pose a threat to the national sort of identity, the same old story that we hear all the time. But this is real, and we need to deal with this story as social sort of scientists or pedagogues or whatever. So conditions in the camps, for example, will become very vocal in the media, very, very prominent. And we had all these reports of illy equipped sort of camps. So a lot of people, like some camps had capacity for 3,000 people, and 10,000 people were stored in there. So you had a massive sort of uproar within the camps, and we had some sort of fires. One of the camps in Greece was set on fire. So we had these kind of issues. And again, Lesbos, Moria, that was a legendary camp with dreadful conditions. And now, they try to create, and they have created new sort of infrastructure. Greece was unprepared to such a vast number. We're talking about 1 million people within a year. That was for any country. And of course, Greece, because we had all these sort of financial problems and 10 years of crisis. So it was very hard for us to be responsive to such a need. But and another issue is that Europe wanted to, provide some money to countries like such as Greece and Italy, and forget all about the issue of the refugee issue. So the solidarity that the European Union and the countries, the other member states, had to show to Greece and Italy was not so important to them. So we had to negotiate and renegotiate how Europe will respond to this kind of sort of phenomenon. But I don't think that the European Union has maintained a strong sort of leadership with respect to be responsive to this kind of refugee issues. Now, we don't have a very strong sort of research component in Greece, but there was a little survey distributed around the Athens, the city, the capital city, and here we have some of the Athenians, what the Athenians believe about the actual refugees. That was back in 2016. So 54% of the Athenians believed that refugee integration would be difficult in Greece, and they're correct. And 70% of them, they thought that the refugee children need to enroll into the Greek schools. 57 showed some kind of solidarity, okay, or 50%, an absolute divide here. 50% of the population thought that the refugees need to have some labor payments to go, to find some work and everything. And only 38% were in favor of refugees, being accommodated in hostels or in camps, and 43% say that these people need to stay in apartments within the cities. So that was a very initial and rough sort of idea of the public sentiment at that time. In Greece, 60% of the refugees wanted to go to Germany, which was the case. So people were, crossing the borders in order to go straight to Germany. And the German industry absorbed like 1 million people at that in that era. So only 30% wanted to go back to the country. But they feel satisfied and secure in Greece, most of the refugees. Greece is a safe place, so didn't have any issues. So 85% said that they didn't actually felt racism in Greece, obvious racism at least. And of course, the majority of refugee people came from cities. They were urban populations in Greece of the refugees. Only 2 to 3% speak Greek, and only 17 to 22% want to learn some Greek. They think that the Greek language is not very useful sort of to them because they want to move. So that's understandable. Overall, the refugees, their status remain marginal. They don't have any political or civic rights. It's too early for them. And of course, they are not non-citizens. And that's an important realization for us, because the local people need to realize that they're going to co-live with non-citizens. They're going to be the citizens, but at the same time, a vast majority of population, they're going to enjoy no rights. They're going to have no rights, and they're going to have this marginal sort of status. And that creates a lot of issues. They're not obvious from the first side, but we need to be we need to alert people on these issues, because many of these non-citizens seek legitimacy. They want to become someone. They want to belong somewhere, and they're gonna strive for some rights at some point of their lives. So it's important, and that comes through education. Access on education to education is very important. And we know that people that live in camps, like refugees live in camps, dropout rates are huge. So they don't send kids to the school. Only in Greece, we have like 20,000 refugee kids in Greece. Only 12,000 of them go to school. It's a huge percentage. I mean, dropout rates are huge. That we can afford to have a lost generation of or uneducated people. in our countries. So it's very sort of important to understand this kind of parameters and work on that. Now, we were privileged with Nicola and Helen when she was in Greece during her sabbatical to go and visit one of these camps, refugee camps. And we were privileged because we become friends with the families there, and we were able to record their narratives. And that's important research sort of apparatus, to be able to understand the context first, and then to use the appropriate methodology, research methodology. So instead of going there to do a little interview, we allow people to narrate the story. As I said, we were focusing on their agency and on them to have their own voice and to say wherever they had to say. So we went to this Lechena camp, which is an hour from Patras, and we spent some time with them. And of course, an important sort of realization was that these people were living in a liminal space, somewhere in between the circumstances, in between time, in between relations. They were here in Greece and there in Syria with their fantasy, with their imagination, or they were there in Germany, again, with their imagination. So these people were captured in time and space, in between time and space. So that was important for us to come across to this notion of hybridity, and we learned this notion from anthropologists, very useful. So interdisciplinarity was very useful to us. These people, as I said, were caught in between time and space, and of course they had to reinvent new rules and new regulations, and they have to come across to new rules and regulations. But at the same time, the liminal space that they use within the camp, it has proven to be a productive space that allowed for negotiation and identity development. It was a place that new culture was produced, a hybrid culture was produced, and new identities were formed. New identities because, as I said, we talked to young learners, youngsters, and these people were eager to become global sort of travelers, modern citizens, to go. They had dreams to go to Germany, become doctors, become journalists, translators, you name it. So they envisioned their future as being a bright future. They had this aspirational sort of mindset, which was very important for us to realize. And of course, in this liminal space that they were living in, new possibilities and new transformations were about to begin and to occur. And these people, young people, were ready to capture this change, the wind of change. But of course, that wasn't the case for the parents, for example. The parents were, much more focusing on how to go by and, to fulfill the basic needs and so forth. But the kids were there to dream. Nicola, I can't remember. I think that was the main sort of the gist, that the main idea. For inhabitants, this liminal space, this camp, which was separated from the rest of the village, it was somewhere far away in the fields. This camp was a liminal space again, but it was more confined. They wanted, the inhabitants, local people, wanted to maintain these, distance, in order to secure their own sort of a way of life and their own identity. They didn't really want to mix with these people. So it was a liminal space again for them, but some were, keeping that afar from their own sort of local physique and their homes and village. It was a source, the camp, it was for them a source of disruption and displacement. These were people, uprooted, being there. The poor people, traumatized, all these concepts that local people had to, bring into their discussions in order to make sense of this new condition. this new condition was had no precedent. It was something very new to everyone, to refugees and to locals as well. So so it was pretty much an alien territory, to cut the long story short. The refugee presence, of course, brought and reflected intentions, okay? And in local sort of eyes, these people were victims. It was the whole story about trauma and victimization. So these people had no choice. They were able, they had no control over their lives. And local people created this sort of narrative about refugees by being victims, no choice, having no choice, no control over their lives, or being imposters, because they could be people that wanted to trick the system and obtain asylum and become, and obtain rights that they would not deserve. So that was the official rhetoric in Europe and in Greece. So local voices or local sort of mentality was in between of these sort of realizations or these notions. And I think it's important for us to realize, because we could talk to people and we could discuss these very difficult issues with local sort of inhabitants. Otherwise, you cannot bring a change. If people believe that refugees are the marginals, the people in need all the time, the people that put a lot of strain into the system, the health system or the social security and wherever, or if these refugees are here to get our works and jobs, that's it. I think we are losing the big picture, because as we've seen it at the very start of this presentation, the numbers are growing. Refugees will be always an issue, and it's not very sort of productive to perceive them as being uprooted, as people in exile, because they are in exile, but at the same time they're going to stay there forever or for many years before they move to go somewhere else. So I think it's important to start. As I said, as a social scientist, we need to have this kind of discussions in order to change the rhetoric, the political and the social rhetoric in our societies. And throughout our research, we found that people and refugees have agency. They have people. They're not, refugee people are not just, as I said, the uprooted people, the victims, the poor things, the traumatized people, but they're people that they've got the ability to make solid plans for their life, to take, the risk to take another step and go to another, country or wherever, and without papers, without passports, and with these conditions, without any euro in their pockets, for example. So these people become the kind of social agents that we seek to educate our children in Australia or in Greece, for example, to become. They've got different and very strong skills, language skills, resilience. If you go to all these sort of psychologists, the colleague psychologists, resilience is very important sort of skill. These people possess it because they had to be resilient in order to survive. Simple as that. Or they are risk takers. They're problem solvers all the time. They have to, and they deal with very serious problems, not mathematical or whatever, life, risky sort of issues and conditions, circumstances. So, and I think another sort of characteristic is that they maintain a very strong vision of rebuilding their homes elsewhere. Very strong drive for creating a new sort of possibilities for themselves. And as Jackson said, their loss is countermanded by actions. Actions and being active is a savior sort of condition for them. Now, another sort of important point that, except from liminality, it was their sort of perception of homes. What do they perceive as being their home? And I think that was very important for us to make these realizations through the literature review, and of course through our data. Our data indeed validate the literature review, and the literature review is all about multiple allegiances, that people, modern people, maintain strong sort of connections with multiple places, and it's not a very productive or helpful sort of a point to see refugees as being simply out of place, people in exile or uprooted, as I said before. So they are the modern travelers that they make new connections with different places, and they create and reform their identity. So identity and national identity, it's not attached to a single place, as the national ideology tries to make us believe. Okay, I'm Greek, of course. I maintain strong sort of connection to my home island, Lefkada, or Greece as such. But at the same time, I was lucky enough to become Australian citizen, so I've got this attachment here. I like Australia. If I go to America and I've got friends and wherever and strong connections, I have a sort of an attachment to America. I feel, as being my home there, as having my home there. So it's important for us to realize this kind of allegiance and connections. And of course, the imagined homelands that Alderson many years ago had pointed out, I think it's the case for everyone that is mobile in global in our global community. Transnational movements always pose sort of a challenge to spatiality, to connecting in one place, and we have to keep that in mind. So refugees may be in state of a limbo or belonging to another place, but at the same time, they maintain a strong desire to restore the certainties of a perceived static past. So people, of course, they always have memories and they connect with the old past, the old home, but at the same time try to acquire a new possibilities, future possibilities. So theory helped us here a lot, and we found a schema by Helen Taylor. Her research was focused on Cypriots in the UK. So she came up with a schema of having different sort of characterizations for home. The home was spatial, temporal, and relational, and material, 4 different categories, 4 different connections. In other words, spatial home is important because you connect to the place, the physical place, and you remember your house, your yard, the physical environment, and you have this special emotion. And if you go around Melbourne, you're gonna see, for example, little olive trees outside certain houses. They're Greeks, we know that, because they want to bring Greece into the yard, or they plant tomatoes or cucumbers, whatever. So that's a reminiscence. That's the something to connect. Or they feel uprooted. They feel that because they were disconnected from their own physical environment in Greece, for example. Another that's the spatial dimension. Another dimension is the temporal. The temporal dimension has to do with connecting the time, remembering the past, living the present, envisaging the future. So, and if you have multiple sort of connections and multiple relocations, you can find yourself, caught in between time. So you always are sort of, you always are happy, or not happy, or obliged, I should say, or ready to connect with multiple time capsules. So you do that. There is not a linear progression from past to the future. You caught in between time. You always remember, past, and at the same time you live your present house and home conditions, and envisage, as I said, the future. So and of course, there's always a mythic place of desire. The old country, it becomes a legend. It becomes something symbolic. It becomes something, a point of return. You always want, if you ask my uncle and relatives here, they always want to go back to Greece, but they will never go. They will, stay here forever, and then they did. And another dimension is the relational. The relational dimension of home is the kind of lived experiences of locality, the networks that you've developed in the new sort of place. And of course, you reestablish the new house, the new home, through the friendships, the new friendships, through the new sort of routines that you establish. And the routines could be going to school, going to work, having a chat with a neighbor, going to a resource center to, acquire some information. So you try to reestablish certain routines, and that goes for refugees as it goes for migrants. So if you see here all the ethno-regional sort of organizations, they do the same thing. They serve the same purpose. They give people, for example, Italians, Greeks, Chinese, wherever, they give them the opportunity, migrant people, they give them the opportunity to reestablish their own sort of routines and sociality, because that gives them a sense of security and prospective future, of course. So it's interesting to see. We found these three dimensions through the data, but of course there is the material dimension that we didn't actually find it through the data that we had from the narratives that we did with young refugees aged 11 to 15 years old. So that was interesting. The material dimension refers to the smells, the things that you can actually remember, and the material issues, or the artifacts that you can bring. Some people left with some money in the pocket and a little token from the house, a little something, an icon, something. That was the material. Bringing this token with them, it was as if they carry out the home to the old home to the new sort of condition and situation. So that was very important for us to have this realization. And I will not say a lot of things about that. I can leave you these things.
I want to just say about how mind-blowing this was when we talk with these children. But for me, one of the things that hit me like a brick was how much cash you need to bring. I mean, you have to realize, because when you get into the stories about how much they paid to get on this boat, oh wow!
Yeah,
and the boat people, the smugglers, they there was a couple there. Remember the lecturer and the ex-army guy, and then there was families. So one family paid $600 for the trip from Turkey to the boat smuggler. Another paid $6,000.
Yeah.
For the same number of people. Just the sheer randomness of it. These guys were just looking at these people and determining what they were worth at that point in time.
Okay, so does it
American dollars too.
Yeah, of course,
No
always.
euros.
That's the currency. That's the currency.
No euros.
Because in Turkey, American dollars is.
Yeah.
Okay, so the meaning of home, just to give you a bit of sort of comments from these young people. Life in Syria was amazing. I was enjoying playing with my friends. I was happy. I do miss my country now. When the war is over in the Idlib, I won't come back. You see, this is always, the desire to return. It's always there. I mean, the previous sort of theoretical schema fits perfectly with and interprets the actual comments that we received from these people. And home. My home is in Syria, even though it's boring and dangerous over there. One day when it's okay, I'll be back. That's always the message, of course. And we have more and more sort of and that's a favorite comment excerpt from Adam. Home is a sacred word. It means everything to me. And that was highlighted in the on the title, or in our paper that we did with Nicola.
Well, you can still see his face. I get
Yeah.
emotional when
Yeah,
he
yeah.
said that to me.
Aleppo is my second mother.
Yeah.
We have to be strong. It's difficult to go back in Aleppo because everything is straight. After 20 years, maybe, But these were young people, young sort of students who had to come to terms with the new reality, and they were very sort of active in doing so. They demonstrated agency in terms of the past is past, let's move on. But of course, I always keep an eye on my past, and I would like to stay connected and so forth. Emotionally, I'm there, but let's be realistic and let's move, ahead. That was the message. For that reason, we're saying that it's a fallacy to believe that refugees are the traumatized, are just trauma people. They may have trauma, but it's not just that. So that there are much more things. And the human agency is very important. So we need to treat them as equals, as citizens, to give them this kind of prospect in order to benefit from these people, and these people to benefit from our societies. And it goes on and on. I mean, meaning of home, the present, they were very good, because when we were in Greece, the police helped us and gave us water, food, shoes, clothes. Not like the Turkish police. Yes, I feel safe here. I thought when I will arrive to Greece, I can go anywhere because Greece is in Europe, but Turkey belongs to Asia. I feel Europe as being my new home. That's the strong drive that they felt and they had in terms of redefining the new home, Europe. But of course, when they go to Europe, the cultural stuff is important. So we had one of the narrators, young lady, now has 3 kids.
Oh yeah, Hannah.
Yeah. So
Wait, I was just as you were talking about, because it's 2016 and we talked with them. I was just thinking about Tarek, and he's in Belgium now.
Mhm.
The other thing about all these children that we interviewed, there were very few of them that were intact families there. They had fathers, brothers, uncles who all went ahead. So it was like a waiting room for Germany. But like Tarek, his family was in Germany, but he ended up in Belgium. He was older than these ones because he was like 18 at the time, I think, from memory. But and I'm just friends with him on Instagram, and he's always going, he's so soccer mad and always going for the Syrian team. So he hasn't got a Belgian team. And they're pretty good at soccer. I was just thinking that, And Hannah's got 3 children now.
So
in those years,
the new home future, they try to envisage a new home in the future. If I go to Germany, I will be very happy because my mother will make everything for us in order to be happy. I feel that Germany is my new home, for example. It will be a big challenge to learn the German ways, but I think that we will have a very good life. You can study, you can go do everything. I want to be a circus dancer in the future. People.
That was the girl.
After 10 years, my home will be in Germany. Aleppo will be okay, but now my home will be Germany forever. I think that I will stay in Germany. I want to go to Aleppo to see what happened there, but like a holiday. Maybe I'm gonna leave to a country in the Middle East, Egypt, like Lebanon, for example. But it's everything. Everything is possible for these people. But at this point, they want to establish somewhere solid, and then they will think of the future.
Because it was interesting in this place, which was a abandoned, well, not run down, abandoned really, resort by the ocean in the Peloponnese. And they didn't work, even though they were in sort of like villas, I want to call them that, you know what I mean? That's not luxury. The food was brought to them. They couldn't do their own cooking.
That was an issue.
Yeah.
The conditions, the living conditions in the camps were dreadful at that stage. Yeah. And because the Greek state wanted to have something, to respond quickly to their basic needs, they asked the army to distribute food instead of giving, not even the international sort of agencies like UNESCO and, not UNESCO, like the UN. the High Commission for refugees and other sort of NGOs. They had no plans, responsive plans to give these people like some money or like a coupon or something to go and buy their own foods. But that was that was the case later on. But at these initial stages, we had all these. They had all these issues.
But
The important.
where we were in these villas, I'm calling them villas, but I don't mean villa. They was like a hotel 2-story room that they had come from the camps at Yanina and Thessaloniki, where they were like sleeping on bare rock.
Yep.
And the thing about this place was that they were all Syrians, and a lot of the violence in the camps, but like the ones in the pictures, was in the country, and because they had so much cash, and it hit me like a brick when I realized how much cash they had. That there's going to be robberies and you have to take care of each other because you're protecting your and jewelry and
Whatever available.
Yeah.
And of course, physical protection. I mean, you had to be. I mean, if you had little girls or little boys, wherever, very careful. But so settlement, sort of a camp life, very hard, and you can go through the media reports to find out more information, and it's not an exaggeration.
Looking through my photos to show them the types of places where they were living.
But anyway, we thought when we approached them, we thought, as I said, to use the appropriate methodology to do this research. When we went to this camp, narratives was important, narrative inquiry, because the participants or the co-inquirers, as we name them, were empowered to talk to us and to reflect on their own lives and their own experiences. And they obtained a voice, and they were able to articulate their experiences, very important, because they assumed an equal status to us, that we are of equal importance to you guys, and we can actually discuss, not being asked to report in an interview sort of mode, but you sit there and we're going to tell you the story, our story to you. So that was very powerful. And of course, these become very powerful testimonies for them and for us. And through these sort of act of collaboration, of co-narration, they obtain agency, and they took some control. They felt that they have some control over their lives, because narratives, it's a very personal sort of a concept and a thing to do. You narrate whatever you want to say to the other person. You construct your story, and through this construction, you obtain identity. You deal with your identity. You reconstruct your identity, who you are to be, and to be projected to the other person. So I think that was interesting for us to see this kind of strength and the desire to tell their own truth, not the truth that it's available through the media and through the social sort of sphere, but their own truth. And validating this truth to the researchers and to the other people was very important. That was, I will not, go through all of these sort of examples and comments, but I think refugee and the crossing and refugee crossing through different sort of borders, that was a life-changing sort of event for them. And they treasure this event, so they hold it dear into their hearts, because they expect that this threshold, this passage, will direct them somewhere good, somewhere that they can actually regain their lives. So liminality, even though it was an important stuff, they realized they've experienced separation. They've experienced transitional phase in terms of trying to catch up with their own lives, but at the same time, resettlement was something very important. So liminality has all these three different phases: the separation, the transition, and then the resettlement phase, which was and the reincorporation of a new status, as we say. So these people, even though were living in between, they were in this transitional phase. They had they had fixed cause to make it through the resettlement phase, and that was something that I think made an impression to us. It was really important to realize that these people had a future. Now, all these sort of realizations and the validating of research data with the rest of the theory, the refugee theory, gave us a very strong framework of learning. So we became learners of these experiences, co-inquirers, as we say. We learn from these people many stuff. And of course, this social learning, this learning of our own had to be transformed into social learning. We had to become more vocal as researchers and to talk about these issues. So we did publications, and we've gone through collaborative activities, visits in, this is the camp, you remember that?
Yeah.
So so we had to discuss all these various truths, these people's comments and truths into the wider society through publications, through exhibitions, through forums and discussions and conferences. So we try to become more socially sensitive and to advocate up to a certain point this kind of findings to the wider community. We held, for example, at the University of Patras, the Children's Festival. So these are the refugee kids from that camp coming to the University of Patras and spending a whole week in doing activities. And they came as students, by bus and everything. So they've been integrated into the activities with other local kids and had their activities done. And here, this is this blue stuff. That was an activity with the Aegean border crossing, the Aegean crossing. So that was the sea, the waves. So people had to struggle to go over the waves and go to Greece and wherever. So we had to become very inventful in terms of activities in order to integrate them. And of course, other people, other universities like the Hellenic Open University, they ran a project, the PRESS project, which was all about designing kits, resources, learning resources for these kids. That was, again, that contributed a lot. And of course, the Facebook, the social networking become very interesting. And I think, and the social media, of course, and all this, but the Facebook, because it became very interesting stuff, because we maintain, as you can see here, we maintain a contact with these young people. And we had all these, connections and discussions and everything. And even Nicola, you maintain a lot of contacts with them too. Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, Tarek's in Brussels and Hanan is in Germany. I've got the city now.
No, and the Belgium stuff. Hello, dear. Yes, I'm good. Thanks. I'm now in Belgium. Just touching base with us. Yeah. How are you, and so forth. So I think it's important for them to have different people into their Facebook profiles.
Yeah, I should say we didn't ask them to keep in contact with them.
No,
they asked us.
Yeah, and of course, other initiatives we had was a close connection with NGOs in Greece, Metadrasi or Melissa. Melissa is for refugee women. Metadrasi has an extensive record in refugee education. So all these activities and connections we maintain as a university become important to our work, because we wanted to deal with, these people, this group of people, and to open up our activities and beliefs to their own conditions. And I've just put all these different programs that run all over Greece for refugees. Different programs, NGOs. And of course, we had a program ourselves in Patras, the Opera Project, which was all about inclusion through the arts and opera. So we liaised with and collaborated with Italians and other people, partners, to create materials, to do the training and so forth. And refugees become very focal point. And we also organized a forum in Avplion in 2018, and many forums. I held an annual forum in Patras, and we called for experts to discuss on intercultural education and refugee education, and to give us their and to create this reflexiveness and a collaborative and sort of a collective intelligence around these issues, a common understanding. That's very important. And if you can, here at the University of Melbourne, if you can connect with us, it would be lovely to discuss these issues from Australian and from a European Greek perspective, for example.
I mean, the 2016 York conference, we had
Yeah.
Hanan and Tarek.
Of course.
And then 2019 you had more, didn't you?
Yeah. In 2018, in 2016, we had these two refugee kids coming to the forum and talking to us. In 2018, in Avplion, we implemented a different narrative approach, which was the public narrative speaking. So we've allowed 3 refugee kids to young people to become sort of advocates for their own cases and for their own people. So that was very successful. And we have for all these activities, we have papers. We have done some research and some sort of documentation. So we have like a publicly stated sort of data. Because, as I said, we try to through this activity, the intervention, the actual co-learning with sort of refugees, and then the publication, we try to validate, and we kind to project a new kind of truth or multiple truths around the same topic. And of course, we had conferences and so forth. So if I, by concluding, if I need to say something, is that we're talking about a re-territorialization of identities, and as I said before, multiple sort of allegiances to place and homes. So we need to understand that. So when we try to interpret national identity, we need to see it from that lens. We need to use different lenses. As many researchers say, we have a profound sense of loss of territorial roots, because we change places, we have multiple sort of countries, home countries. It's not, I mean, Nicola, you're a product of this. Nicola, if you ask Nicola about her sort of hometown, she will use 3-4 sort of different locations.
3 different countries.
Yeah, countries. Look at yes. So, but that doesn't, mean that Nicola doesn't feel Australian, for example.
Definitely.
You see.
Yeah.
It's a wealth to try to restore and build your identity by having multiplicity, and be okay with that. Not to have to choose between one and another. These divisive sort of or not bipolar, but these binary.
Yeah.
This binary is very restrictive to in our modern world, because everyone travels.
That's what the right-wing media public discourse does.
Yeah.
Because I mean, after talking to these children, even for an hour, I defy anyone who tells me that a family will get on a boat for some sort of advantage, because I mean, it's just not possible.
So
when you hear the actual stories from their mouth, in their own words, and we should say that we talked with the children that were like 11 to 15, because they were fluent in English. The younger children, of course, weren't. So, and we saw photographs of them, and we've got photographs of them. And also there's that ethical side of the trauma. You can't speak to 6-year-olds about this. In terms of ethics.
Yeah, but these children were focusing on their agency, their possibilities, future possibilities, future homes, and so forth. They didn't wanted to talk about trauma.
No.
They've chosen the kind of story that they wanted to narrate,
Yes, because
which
they
was
have
very
to.
important to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, but anyway, and they gave us, they were set an example of being a global learner, global citizen. These people wanted to, embrace mobility and embrace new kind of identities. So I think that was a very characteristic example of cosmopolitanization, as Beck proposes or says, like the loud presence of the other in our modern, everyday life. So you cannot separate the others being other somewhere else in East, Far East. They're here. So it's this mixing of people should bring more inclusive narratives of national identity, I think. And we need to deal with that. So if the far right people or the right people or the more conservatives like to discuss the divisiveness or the binaries or whatever, it's not a very helpful sort of example. And we need to discuss about diversity and inclusion in modern and capitalist way, because capitalists like to have diversity. They like diversity for consumerism, but they don't like diversity as in people's sort of identity. So it's a contradiction. So they have to decide either they want like diversity or they don't. So it's not, they cannot be picky. So, and another final sort of point that I would like to make is we need to create sustainable and inclusive societies, because we cannot afford being ethnocentric. We cannot afford ethnocentricity. Will bring more radicalization, will bring more divisiveness. If we afford to sustain these divisive societies, I don't think that we can expect very positive things. So we need to deal without fear people, but we need to be prompt on local fairness as well. If people fear about multiculturalism in Australia or a national identity in Greece, for example, we need to be attentive. We need to discuss with them, not to say that they are conservatives or they are idiots or whatever. So we need to be very, very careful in including these people as well. If local people feel excluded, we're losing. We're losing and I think we've lost it, throughout the years. So we need to be very.
We came to that situation sympathetic, so we were quite informed about the sort of thing. But like I said, when you actually talk to them, it just blows your mind.
Yeah, it is. But
there's all these things you hadn't thought of, like the cash, and I don't know why, but and it's like it's so different than seeing it secondhand. It's unbelievable.
Now, all these points, all this framing, it was very important to me, because that helped me to understand, this group of people, and then be able to become more helpful to teachers, how to design, in order to design, in order to be more attentive, more responsive, culturally responsive to students, and to try to think how we're gonna train these people in a better way so they become useful. Otherwise, they receive all these kids into the classes and they repeat the same old biases and some old practices. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
I think the university there. So by all means, I would like to welcome you to come in and visit us, and hopefully our collaboration will continue strong and in the future. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
And it's right there in Patrick.
Wonderful.
And it's handy because it's right by the bridge from the Peloponnese to go over to the mainland.
Kylie, is it warm there?
Oh, Kylie's there.
Hi.
Hello.
Are we still recording? We're still recording, I think.
We turn it off now. Turn it off now.
Let's turn the recording off.
Yeah, wonderful Nick is here.